drink that right now. All right?
More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back in. If you haven't heard this national story yet, this is the Zach Gelb Show on a Wednesday. 4:16 is the time in our Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. That was Rutgers Athletic Director Pat Hobbs. He's 56 years old and chugged a beer in the parking lot. Who cares? It's amazing of our politically correct society how people are giving Pat Hobbs backlash today. I don't understand it. I don't even believe that he should have apologized for this. Get over it. It's not like he was chugging 10 beers or pounding 10 shots and taking them down back to back. He had one beer, chugged it, and made a bunch of students happy, and he's of age, by the way. So that's what you have right now. Rutgers plays this weekend against Iowa. And I'll tell you this, you won't have Pat Hobbs chugging any beer because he'll get crucified for it. But now joining us from NJ.com does a tremendous job covering Rutgers football, and that's Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan, thanks for a few minutes, and how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. So what was your reaction to the backlash and the decision of Pat Hobbs for chugging a beer over the weekend when Rutgers was playing some football?
To be honest with you, those are two different questions. I mean, I'm a little surprised by the backlash, but I think to a degree Pat Hobbs is paying for the sins of his predecessors, so to speak. I mean, the national media, the national perception of Rutgers is one that, you know, there's been too many scandals in too long a time, and people are aware of that. But this is not, I mean, on the scale, I hardly think it registers as you know, other analysts have said this morning elsewhere. I mean, I hardly think it registers, but it is bad optics. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I mean, Pat Hobbs apologized. He stated his reason for going there was to, crowd control and, help calm down a raucous event, and it seemed that part of it worked. Yeah, certainly bad optics. He is a Rutgers public official, but I don't think there were any bad intentions there. And like I said, on the scale of things that have happened at Rutgers, this hardly compares.
And that's because of what Julie Herman did with her newspaper comment and what happened with Coach Rice. And I just think it's ridiculous how there's some people, and I think you're stupid if you do this, that are lumping it with this incident. They're totally separate, like you were saying. But it just comes down to really our society that this is an unconventional thing for an athletic director to do. And it shows how we're once again falling into that PC trap. And this is another incident that occurs from that with our society.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's going to have their own opinion on it, and with I don't think, like I said, I think it almost was made worse by the fact that Rutgers, there's this misperception out there that Rutgers canceled the tailgate because of what happened with Pat Hobbs, which could not be further from the truth, and because of a badly timed, the video and the announcement about the tailgate being canceled came out on the same day. They've been linked together. Couldn't be further from the truth. What Pat Hobbs did happened at the tailgate that got canceled for the future. That tailgate was canceled for safety reasons. That's not just PR. That's not just what was said. That's the truth. The truth is Rutgers canceled that tailgate because it was starting to get out of hand. And that just happened to happen on the same day, and then there's a news hook to it, and away we went.
Now, if you look at some other Big Ten schools like an Ohio State or a Michigan, if there's only 4 citations on a football Saturday, that's probably a good day for them. Was it that rowdy as they were saying in some of these reports at the tailgate? I don't know if you were there or from people that you've talked to.
I wasn't there. From what I've heard, it was much bigger than anticipated. There were only a couple hundred students at the first one. It grew probably 5 times the second one. For me to be able to tell you what's a good number of citations versus a bad number of citations, I don't know. I mean, it is college football. It is Saturday. I don't know how that compares to other schools. I don't know if they do other tailgates like that. But, it did grow beyond what they expected very quickly. So Rutgers decided to cancel it. And was it that rowdy? Yeah, from the eyewitness accounts I've got, it was getting pretty rowdy. And there was, not even all those students weren't even necessarily going into the football game. So that's what it was designed to be, pregame party to have some fun before you go into the football game. And I'm not sure that every student was using it as that.
So far, I like Pat Hobbs as the athletic director of Rutgers, and I think he's someone that brings in new life. We all know Julie Herman was a train wreck during her time at Rutgers, but with Pat Hobbs, what's your evaluation on him? I know there's still a lot of work to do, but so far, do you like what you're seeing with Pat Hobbs?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it hasn't even been a year, but it's hard not to like some of the things he's got accomplished, whether it's the $100 million fundraising campaign. I mean, he's only probably 60% of the way there now. But you know what? Just the idea that he launched it when many to pull the trigger on such a thing for fear of not being able to accomplish it and looking bad. He said, let's do it. And so they've done it, and they got off to a fast start. It's been a little slow of late, but certainly from a fundraising perspective, he's been good. Rutgers, between him and Deputy Athletics Director Sarah Baumgartner, who is well-liked by the donors as well, they smashed their fiscal year fundraising numbers in this past year that just closed in June. They smashed them. It was ridiculous. I did a big story for NJ.com, the number of donors, the number of letter winners, the amount of money. It was all record-setting. So from that perspective, and then from his hires, I mean, most people seem to think Chris Ash was a good hire. It's hard to argue. We haven't seen any basketball games, but certainly he got one of the hotter mid-major coaches after Steve Peichel led Stony Brook to the NCAA tournament, and then he's made the best of a strange situation with the Rutgers-Maryland game being played at Yankee Stadium in 2017. He's tried to turn what was kind of a dead gift that he was left by his predecessor. He's tried to bring some life to it. So from most of the things he's accomplished in 9 months, I'd say he's off to a pretty good start. But again, bad optics on this one. He apologized. I think that should pretty much take care of it.
Ryan Dunleavy joins us from NJ.com on the Zach Gelb Show. So let's talk a little Rutgers football. I'll throw the Washington game out because Washington is just such a better team than what Rutgers is right now. But Howard and New Mexico, the slow starts are a concern. What do you think is going wrong to start games for Rutgers, especially against Howard and New Mexico?
Yeah, unlike Chris Ash, he's not ready to call it a trend. I'm certainly ready to call it a trend.
Agreed.
3 is a trend in my book, and whether they're all different or whatnot, I mean, Washington kind of punched them in the face by a top 10 team. I get that. The other 2 are far less excusable. What do I think is going on? I don't know. I think Rutgers is one of those teams that's coming out flat. Chris Ash kind of made a joke about how there's no magic formula of jumping jacks that you can do to be better prepared for a game. But at the same time, I do think, you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're just doing the same over and over. I know he has a pregame situation that he believes in, that he's learned through his years as an assistant coach. But every team's different, every school's different. So if it continues, I would expect him to tweak it. But the flip side of that is the Rutgers coaching staff's been really good on in-game adjustments. And that's how you come back and win. And they've been able to do that. So that's one thing you haven't been able to say about Rutgers in quite a long time, is that the team gets better as the game goes on. So maybe you're trading off the slow starts for the better 3 quarters at the end.
Let's get into the quarterback situation with Chris Laviano. How would you break him down through the first 3 games? And do you believe that he is still the best quarterback on this roster?
Yeah, obviously he hasn't been good. He's been inconsistent. He's been turnover prone. He's been a lot of things you don't want to be. I think he's probably still the best quarterback on the roster. Take that for what it means. Just because if Rutgers really had its druthers, I'm sure they'd like to create some sort of quarterback out of Laviano's experience and Reddick's arm strength and Tylen Oden's legs and Gio Racino's smarts. I'm sure they'd like to mold that guy, but you can't do it. So there's going to be pros and cons with everybody. Oden is really frail, or at least looks so he's an injury risk if you play him, and obviously he has very little experience. And Racino's not a great thrower, and Zach Allen, who I should have mentioned in there, obviously. Zach Allen probably has the best command of the playbook, but he's only thrown 4 passes in 4 years, so you talk about rust. They just don't have a perfect quarterback. There's going to be pros and cons to everybody, and I know there's fans who say, well, just throw something against the wall, something new against the wall to see what sticks. But right now I think Laviano probably still has the slight edge just because he gets them in the right plays, which might not sound like a lot to a fan, but it is. He minimizes the risk for disaster is the best, is probably so to speak, which isn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but it's probably the best thing I can say right now.
Well, let's talk about someone that is getting my endorsement, and that's been Janarian Grant. Does anything surprise you with this kid anymore?
No, I guess what surprises me is that they didn't find a way to get him the ball more sooner. Ben McDaniel, last year's offensive coordinator, used to be the wide receivers coach. The year before that, Ralph Friedgen was the offensive coordinator, a really brilliant football mind. I'm surprised it took this long to see this out of Janarian, honestly. Supposedly he's improved his hands multifold, and maybe that's why we see him so much on the field. And if that's the case, then tip of the cap to him. And I guess that is probably the case because we did see a lot of drops from him early on in his career. But all we see, I don't even think he has a touchdown catch yet. He's a wide receiver without a touchdown catch. But he has 3 touchdown runs, a touchdown pass. Obviously what he does on special teams is a must-watch. That's when sports writers and fans usually go to the bathroom, right? During special teams, that's when you get up and try to get a head start. Rutgers kids, don't miss a special teams play. Do not miss a kick return. Do not miss a punt return. Any one of them could be a touchdown. And so, no, nothing he does surprises me.
Wrapping up with Ryan Dunleavy, so let's break down the defense because that is Chris Ash's forte. Through the first 3 games, what are some things that you like and dislike with this defense?
I would say the defensive line played very well last game. They're supposed to be the strength of the team with all those seniors. Darius Hamilton played one of the better games he's played in his career. Julian Pinnis-Odrick played the best game he's played in his career. And I actually think he might be developing into a Big Ten star right in front of your eyes. 3.5 sacks the last 2 games. Finally has a position after bouncing from end to tackle to end again. I think Julian Pinnis-Odrick is really becoming a very good player. From the linebacker, that's obviously a concern. Najee Clayton no longer with the program right now. Trevor Morris is banged up this week. Linebacker was already thin to begin with, and you take those 2 out, and now it's, paper thin. And then the secondary, what scares me about the secondary through 3 games is they just get beat on go routes. It's like Madden football. Like, when you get really frustrated, what do you do in Madden? You just send your receiver on a Hail Mary, all verticals route, and, hope that you get behind the guy. That's happened 4 or 5 times to Rutgers secondary already where they just get beat. And you can bet every Big Ten offensive coordinator is going to send their fastest wide receiver on a go route against Rutgers just to test the wheels.
Right. Tell my listeners real quickly about the story with Jay Neiman and who's he is coaching against this weekend. That's a fun little story when they play against Iowa.
You know what? It's really funny. Like, when this game was on the schedule, I don't know, last year or 2 years ago, I first noticed it. I said, there's no Jim Harbaugh in that. There's no James Franklin. There's no Penn State rivalry. There's no Rutgers-Maryland aspect to it, like newcomers. What's the storyline? And all this week has been its storylines. And obviously that's the most important one is Jay Neiman, Rutgers' defensive coordinator, will be coaching against his 2 sons. Iowa linebacker Ben Neiman and freshman Nick Neiman, who is redshirting this year. But you got Jay coaching against his son, which is totally strange. Obviously, he was actually committed to play for his dad when Jay was the defensive coordinator at Northern Illinois. But then Kirk Ferentz offered him a scholarship at Iowa. Obviously, you take a scholarship in the Big Ten. He's actually their leading tackler. He had a big interception. He's playing really well, and now you got his dad on the other sideline. Definitely going to make for a weird game. Both of them said they'll go about it as business as usual, but both felt bad for for Ben's mom and Jay's wife, Luann, who's got to split her loyalties a little bit this weekend. I'm sure it's an uncomfortable situation for her.
I'll tell you what you guys should do, and this is just the program director in me, and you guys have 9,000 tremendous writers at NJ.com. You should have someone sit with Jay's wife during the game.
The thought has crossed my mind. Let's not tell the competition.
Okay, sounds good. Before we let you run, Rye, give me your prediction, Iowa Rutgers this weekend. Who walks out with the victory?
Here's the thing. I don't know that Rutgers is ready for this kind of test yet under Chris Ash. It's their first Big Ten game. I don't think they win the game. I think the spread is 14. I will probably pick something around that, 31-16, something like that. But what I don't think, and I know Rutgers fans, all they care about is wins and losses, but if we're going to go back to optics, which is how we started this conversation, Rutgers was outscored by 118 points in 8 Big Ten games in 2014. They were outscored by 164 points in 8 Big Ten games last year. This year, I expect the game. Why was that? Because they got blown out by Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan, Ohio State, the best of the best. I don't expect that this year. I expect Iowa's one of the better teams in the Big Ten, even though they lost to North Dakota State. I don't expect a 49-7, a 42-3 scores that we've seen in the last 2 years. I don't expect that. I mean, yes, a loss is a loss, but I expect a much more competitive loss.
A man with many numbers and a lot of good information. That's Ryan Dunleavy from NJ.com. Covers Rutgers and does a brilliant job. Ryan, thanks for the time today.
Anytime.
Thanks so much. There's Ryan Dunleavy joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. You could call right now, 609-919-9200, 609-919-9200, if you want to go to the Temple game this Saturday against Charlotte. Now, let's get back to Rutgers real quickly. The Pat Hobbs story is just ridiculous, and it's stupid. Yes, it may not look good in our politically correct society, and it's unconventional for an athletic director to do this. But what's the crime? There is none. You had a bunch of drunk students who were cheering, "Take the beer! Chug it! Chug it! Chug it! Yeah!" And then what does Pat Hobbs do? At first he says no, and then after seeing the reaction from the fans of chug it, chug it, chug it, he got peer pressure. Who cares? He chugged the beer. He's 56 years old. It wasn't like he's belligerently drunk like someone would be at a frat party. He wasn't bombed. He chugged one beer, and by the way, not the best job of the AD opening the beer. A lot of beer was flying out of the can, so it wasn't even a full beer. Who gives a rat's ass? It's just absolutely ridiculous that this is a story right now. Who cares that Pat Hobbs chugged a beer? And it's a politically correct statement with that apology. And I don't like politically correct things. Pat Hobbs, let him chug the beer.